Ferrari may have just done the most Ferrari thing possible. They waited until everyone was ready to call the season a Mercedes walkover, then suddenly showed up with speed, momentum, Lewis Hamilton in full revenge mode, and now, apparently, a power upgrade big enough to make the entire paddock start checking the fine print. Because this is not just another engine update. This is Ferrari looking at Mercedes and saying, enjoy that championship lead while it lasts. And that is where this story gets interesting. For months, the championship had a very familiar shape. Mercedes at the front. Mercedes controlling the pace. Mercedes looking like the team with the cleanest package, the strongest engine, and the least amount of drama. Which, for Mercedes, is basically paradise. And for Ferrari fans, it is usually the part of the season where everyone starts saying, maybe next year, while quietly suffering in red. But Barcelona changed the mood completely. Lewis Hamilton's first win for Ferrari was not just emotional, it was not just historic, it was not just one of those feel-good moments where everyone posts slow-motion clips and pretends they always believed. It was evidence. Evidence that Ferrari's car had finally come alive. Evidence that their aerodynamic upgrade was not a marketing press release dressed up as progress. Evidence that Mercedes could actually be beaten on pure pace. And most importantly, evidence that Hamilton's move to Ferrari may not be the romantic retirement tour some people thought it was. Because after Barcelona, the question stopped being, can Ferrari win a race? It became, what happens if Ferrari fixes the one thing still holding them back? And now we may be about to find out. Ferrari are heading to Austria with what could be their most important upgrade of the season. A new power unit, a new shell fuel, and reports of a possible gain of around 30 horsepower. 30 horsepower. In Formula One, that is not a little boost. That is not finding a few coins under the sofa. That is the kind of number that makes rival engineers suddenly develop neck pain from staring too hard at GPS traces. And the timing could not be more dangerous for Mercedes, because Ferrari did not need this upgrade to become competitive in the corners. Barcelona already proved that. Ferrari's aerodynamic package made the car kinder on its tires, sharper through the turns, and fast enough to put Hamilton on the top step. But on the straights, that was still the weakness. Even when Ferrari won, the data suggested they were still not matching Mercedes in energy deployment and straight-line efficiency. In other words, the Ferrari was winning despite the engine gap, not because the gap had disappeared. That is the part many people missed. Barcelona was impressive because Ferrari beat Mercedes while still carrying a known weakness. So what happens if that weakness gets reduced? That is the nightmare scenario for everyone else. Because if Ferrari now adds serious straight-line performance to a car that already looks strong through the corners, suddenly this is not just a team having a good weekend. This is a team building a complete championship weapon. And yes, we have heard this before. Ferrari fans know this trap too well. Every season, there is always a moment where hope starts acting suspiciously, like pain in disguise. The upgrade is coming. The pace is coming. The strategy will improve. The tire wear will be fixed. The wind tunnel says something magical. Then Sunday arrives, and somehow the race turns into a group therapy session. But this time, there is one major difference. Lewis Hamilton is in the car. And Hamilton has spent his entire career doing one very specific thing, better than almost anyone else, turning momentum into pressure. When he smells a title fight, the entire atmosphere changes. The rival garage feels it, the media feels it, the fans feel it. Even the championship leader feels it, whether they admit it or not. That is why this upgrade matters beyond the technical details. This is psychological. Kimi Antonelli still leads the championship. He still has the points. He still has Mercedes behind him. But after Barcelona, that lead was cut to 41 points. And 41 points sounds comfortable until the car behind you suddenly finds cornering speed, engine power, and a 7-time world champion who has absolutely no interest in politely waiting his turn. That is when a championship lead stops feeling like a cushion and starts feeling like a countdown. Here is where things get even more interesting. The Red Bull Ring is not some random circuit where engine power is a nice little bonus. Austria rewards horsepower. It rewards traction. It rewards energy deployment. It rewards cars that can launch out of corners and carry speed down the straights. So if Ferrari's new power unit and shell fuel really deliver the kind of gain being reported, Austria becomes the perfect test. Not a gentle test, a brutal one. The kind where excuses disappear very quickly. If Ferrari are fast there, then Mercedes have a real problem. Because after Austria, come other circuits where power and efficiency matter heavily. Silverstone, Spa, Monza later in the year. These are not tracks where you can hide forever behind clever setup choices and optimistic interviews. If your engine is exposed, everyone sees it. And Ferrari know that. That is why this upgrade feels so aggressive. It is not just about adding performance. It is about choosing the right moment to attack. Ferrari already used Barcelona to prove the chassis has life. Now they are trying to use Austria to prove the power unit has joined the fight. That is how title challenges are built. Not with one miracle weekend, with one weakness after another being removed until suddenly, the rival team realizes the car in their mirrors is not just visiting, it is moving in. Now, the technical side is fascinating because Ferrari are not just turning a few knobs and hoping for the best. Reports suggest this new version of the power unit includes a radical steel alloy cylinder head, which is a serious departure from the more traditional aluminum approach. Why does that matter? Heat, pressure, efficiency. A steel alloy cylinder head can tolerate higher combustion temperatures. Higher temperatures and higher pressure can help extract more energy from the same amount of fuel. And in modern Formula One, that is everything. You are not just trying to burn fuel. You are trying to turn every tiny bit of energy into lap time. The engine is not only about raw power anymore, it is about efficiency, deployment, thermal behavior, and how long the system can keep delivering before it fades down the straight like it forgot why it came to work. That was Ferrari's problem earlier in the season. The car could fight in certain conditions, but the Mercedes power unit had the edge when it came to straight-line performance and deployment. Now Ferrari are trying to change that at the source. And this is where Shell comes in. Because a new combustion concept needs the right fuel. You cannot redesign how the engine wants to produce power and then feed it the same old formula and expect miracles. Ferrari and Shell have reportedly developed a new fuel specifically designed to work with this revised engine concept. That means the engine and fuel are being treated as one package, not two separate upgrades. And that is important because the real gain is not just new engine equals more power. The real gain is integration. It is Ferrari trying to make the combustion process more efficient, the fuel more effective, and the whole system more aggressive, without destroying reliability in the process. And that last part is critical, because power is great. Power that blows up is just expensive confetti. Mercedes are already dealing with concerns of their own, especially after electrical and battery-related issues affected their camp and customer teams. That makes Ferrari's move even more dangerous. Because this title fight may not simply be decided by who is fastest, it may be decided by who can develop without breaking. That is the hidden problem behind this whole story. The team that pushes hardest may gain the most. But the team that pushes too hard may lose everything. And Ferrari, of all teams, know exactly how quickly hope can turn into headlines for the wrong reasons. So Austria is not just a performance test. It is a reliability test. It is a pressure test. It is a test of whether Ferrari have finally learned how to develop like a champion team rather than tease their fans with beautiful chaos. Because the opportunity is massive. Think about the situation Mercedes now face. They started the season looking untouchable. Their drivers were winning. Their package was complete. Their rivals were playing catch-up. Then Ferrari landed a major aerodynamic upgrade. Hamilton won. The points gap shrank. Mercedes' reliability questions appeared. And now Ferrari are bringing more power to one of the most power-sensitive circuits on the calendar. That is not a small shift. That is the kind of sequence that changes the emotional temperature of a championship. The paddock notices. The fans notice. The rival drivers definitely notice. And this is where Hamilton becomes such a fascinating part of the story. Because for Ferrari, this is not just about giving their car more horsepower, it is about giving Hamilton a car that can actually let him hunt. There is a difference between Hamilton driving well and Hamilton believing he has a real championship weapon. When Hamilton believes, things get uncomfortable very quickly for everyone else. He starts extracting weekends that do not make sense. He starts applying pressure in qualifying. He starts turning second places into wins and bad weekends into damage limitation. That is what Ferrari bought when they signed him. Not just experience, not just marketing, not just the most powerful red merchandise campaign in human history. They bought a driver who knows how to smell blood in a title fight. And now, Ferrari may finally be giving him the machinery to do something with it. But there is another side to this. Mercedes are not going to panic publicly. They never do. They will talk about analysis, correlation, long-term development, staying focused, and all the usual calm corporate phrases teams use when their rivals suddenly find 30 horsepower and their lead starts looking nervous. But behind closed doors, they will be watching everything. If Ferrari's speed in Austria is real, Mercedes will know this championship is no longer under control. And that is when the pressure shifts. Because Antonelli is not just fighting a car anymore. He is fighting a story. The young Mercedes star, trying to protect a championship lead against Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari. Come on. That is not just sport. That is Netflix already checking camera angles. And for Ferrari fans, this is exactly the kind of narrative that is impossible to resist. Hamilton in red. Ferrari finally developing aggressively. Mercedes suddenly vulnerable. A power upgrade arriving just as the calendar moves into circuits where horsepower matters. It sounds almost too perfect. Which, of course, is why everyone is nervous. Because Ferrari's greatest enemy has rarely been a lack of talent. It has been execution. The car can be fast. The driver can be brilliant. The upgrade can work. But if the strategy wall starts doing abstract art again, none of it matters. That is the real question. Not just whether Ferrari have found horsepower, but whether Ferrari have found discipline. Can they put together complete weekends? Can they manage reliability? Can they avoid wasting Hamilton's momentum? Can they stop giving away points in races where the car is good enough to win? Because championships are not won by having the fastest car for one weekend. They are won by refusing to throw away the weekends where you have the fastest car. And that is where this season could turn. If Ferrari get Austria right, the conversation changes completely. Suddenly Barcelona is not a one-off. Suddenly the upgrade path looks real. Suddenly Hamilton is not just chasing race wins, he is chasing a championship. Suddenly Mercedes are not defending a lead from a comfortable distance, they are defending it from a Ferrari that may be getting stronger at exactly the wrong time. And that is why this engine upgrade feels bigger than the number. Yes, 30 horsepower would be huge. Yes, the new shell fuel could be a major step. Yes, the steel alloy cylinder head sounds like exactly the kind of technical gamble Ferrari needed to take. But the real story is momentum. Ferrari have gone from chasing to threatening. Mercedes have gone from controlling to defending. Hamilton has gone from adapting to attacking. And Antonelli has gone from building a lead to protecting one. That is how championship fights are born. Slowly at first, then all at once. So now the question is simple. Is this the moment Ferrari finally becomes the complete package? Because if the Barcelona upgrade gave them the corners and Austria gives them the straights, then Mercedes may no longer be facing a challenger. They may be facing a problem, a red one, with Lewis Hamilton behind the wheel. And if that engine delivers, if the fuel works, if the reliability holds, and if Ferrari somehow manage not to sabotage themselves in the most operatic way imaginable, then this championship may have just become a very different story. So what do you think? Is Ferrari's upgrade the beginning of a real title fight, or are we all falling for the red dream again? Can Hamilton turn a 41-point gap into a championship comeback? And should Mercedes be genuinely worried, or is everyone getting carried away after one emotional win? Drop your prediction in the comments, because Austria may tell us whether Ferrari have built a title contender or just given their fans another beautiful reason to suffer.